The wind howled across the rooftop, carrying the bitter chill of Washington, D.C. in January. 6 stories below, crowds of dignitaries filed into the Capitol building, unaware of the invisible threat positioned 1,500 meters away. A single figure in winter camouflage lay motionless on the frosted gravel of an abandoned office building, breath controlled to minimize barrel disturbance. Through the loopholed Mark 5 HD scope, Secretary of Defense Howard Phillips appeared as close as a man across a dinner table. His security detail scanned the perimeter with practiced precision, searching for threats in all the wrong places. The crosshairs settled on Phillips's left temple as he paused to shake hands with a senator. The shooter's finger caressed the trigger, applying pressure with microscopic precision. 4 pounds 8 ounces of pressure, not an ounce more, would send the 175-grain Sierra Match King bullet on its deadly journey. Wind speed 7.4 miles per hour from the northwest. Temperature 28 degrees Fahrenheit. Humidity 62%. Barometric pressure 30.12 nhg. Distance 1,527 meters. All variables calculated and compensated for with mathematical certainty. The shooter exhaled halfway, then held. The world narrowed to the crosshairs and the target. Time itself seemed to slow. The rifle barked its report, muffled by a state-of-the-art suppressor. The bullet traveled for nearly 3 seconds, a lifetime in combat, before finding its mark with devastating precision. Secretary Phillips dropped instantly, his security detail reacting a full second after he was already beyond saving. By the time the first sirens wailed, the shooter had disappeared, leaving behind no shell casings, no fingerprints, no DNA. Only the lingering signature of a shot almost no one on Earth could make. 3,000 miles away, Catherine "Cat" Reynolds moved methodically through Fort Richardson's armory, her practiced hands performing inventory with machine-like efficiency. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows across rows of weapons that had been her entire world for 3 years. To the casual observer, she was just another supply clerk, competent, unremarkable, invisible. Exactly as she'd planned. Cat's fingers traced the worn serial number on an M4 carbine. A small discrepancy in the maintenance log caught her attention. Some private had likely pencil-whipped the cleaning procedure again. She made a mental note to address it later and continued her rounds, checking weapons with the attention to detail that had earned her the respect of her commanding officers. At the back of the armory, nearly forgotten beneath a dust cover, sat an old M24 sniper rifle. It had been scheduled for decommissioning weeks ago, but somehow kept getting overlooked in the endless shuffle of paperwork. Cat had deliberately avoided it until now, but today something pulled her toward it like a gravitational force she couldn't resist. She lifted the weapon carefully, muscle memory taking over, as she checked the chamber and engaged the safety with movements so fluid they seemed choreographed. The weight felt familiar in her hands, comfortable, like greeting an old friend. The M24 was a thing of beauty, despite its age. Based on the Remington 700 action, it had been the backbone of military precision shooting for decades. This particular specimen bore the marks of extensive use. The barrel showed signs of careful maintenance, the kind that spoke of someone who understood that a sniper's rifle wasn't just a tool, but an extension of their soul. Cat found a cleaning kit and settled at a maintenance bench, spreading out the components with practiced precision. The familiar smell of Hops No. 9 solvent filled her nostrils, triggering memories she'd spent 3 years trying to bury. Her hands moved automatically, field-stripping the weapon with a speed and confidence that went far beyond standard armory training. The barrel came clean easily, responding to her touch like it remembered what proper care felt like. She worked the bolt, feeling the smooth mechanical precision that had made the M24 legendary among those who knew such things. Each component received her full attention, cleaned and inspected with the kind of thoroughness that went far beyond standard maintenance protocols. Lost in the ritual of weapon maintenance, Kat didn't notice the figure watching her from the doorway. Colonel Robert Sullivan stood silently, his weathered face impassive, as he observed the supply clerk handling the sniper rifle with expertise that betrayed her carefully constructed cover. Sullivan was a relic of another era, a battle-hardened veteran of Desert Storm whose steel-gray hair and deep-set eyes spoke of decades watching America's enemies through rifle scopes and satellite feeds. His uniform bore the quiet dignity of a man who had earned every ribbon and medal through blood and sacrifice rather than political maneuvering. He watched Kat work for several minutes, noting how she checked headspace with a precision gauge, how she examined the crown of the barrel for the microscopic imperfections that could throw off a shot at extreme distances. These weren't the actions of a supply clerk. These were the instincts of someone who had trusted their life to such a weapon hundreds of times. Kat sensed his presence before she saw him, that prickling awareness of being watched that combat veterans never truly lose. She forced herself to maintain the same pace, to not betray the sudden spike in her heart rate, or the combat readiness that automatically tensed her muscles. "That's some mighty fine work, Specialist Reynolds," Sullivan said, his voice carrying the gravelly texture of too many cigars and too many nights in desert dust. "Thank you, sir," Kat replied without looking up, keeping her voice neutral and her movements deliberate. "Just giving it a proper cleaning before decommission." Sullivan stepped into the armory, the door closing behind him with a soft click that sounded unnaturally final. "Mind if I take a look? Been a while since I've handled an M24. Kat reluctantly handed over the rifle, careful to keep her expression neutral. Sullivan took it with the easy familiarity of an old friend, his hands automatically checking the chamber before examining the weapon. His eyes narrowed as he turned the stock fingers, tracing over certain areas with particular interest. "Beautiful weapon," he murmured. "They don't make them like this anymore. The newer systems have better range and optics. But there's something about these old warriors that feels honest." Kat nodded noncommittally, watching as Sullivan's thumb found a spot near the buttstock that had caught his attention. His weathered finger traced over a small mark burned into the wood, invisible to untrained eyes, but unmistakable to those who knew what to look for. The mark was barely larger than a thumbprint, an elegant design of a stylized eye surrounded by crosshairs with subtle elements that would appear as manufacturing flaws to anyone who hadn't been briefed on its significance. It was the insignia of the Deadeye Division, a unit that officially never existed. "Interesting marking," Sullivan said casually, though his eyes had sharpened with recognition. "Almost looks like some kind of unit insignia." Kat's pulse quickened, but her face remained impassive. "Probably just damage from field use, sir. These old rifles have been through a lot." Sullivan nodded slowly, still examining the mark. "Specialist Reynolds, how long have you been at Fort Richardson?" 3 years, 2 months, sir," she answered promptly. "And before that, where were you stationed?" "Fort Benning for basic then, Fort Lee for supply training." Sullivan handed the rifle back to her, his eyes never leaving her face. "Funny thing about military records. Sometimes they tell stories that don't quite add up." The air between them grew heavy with unspoken knowledge. Kat resumed cleaning the rifle, her movements precise and controlled despite the alarm bells ringing in her head. "Is there something specific you need from the armory, Colonel?" she asked, her voice betraying none of the tension she felt. "Actually, there is," Sullivan said, reaching into his jacket to withdraw a slim file folder. "I need information about this." He laid a photograph on the workbench. It showed the aftermath of the assassination Kat had just seen on the morning news, Secretary of Defense Phillips lying on the Capitol steps, surrounded by panicked security personnel. The image was classified, certainly, not something that would have been released to the media. What would I know about that, sir? Nothing officially, Sullivan agreed. But unofficially, I think you might recognize the shooter's signature. The FBI ballistics report estimates the shot was taken from approximately 1,500 meters, a range that exceeds the capabilities of all but a handful of shooters in the world. Kat maintained her neutral expression. I'm just a supply clerk, sir. Are you? Sullivan's voice hardened slightly. Because your hands tell a different story, Specialist Reynolds. Or should I say Lieutenant Catherine Hayes? The name hit Kat like a physical blow. She hadn't heard it spoken aloud in 3 years. Her cover identity as Catherine Reynolds had been meticulously constructed. New fingerprints, new dental records, new background. The woman known as Catherine Hayes was officially dead listed as killed in action during a helicopter crash in the Hindu Kush Mountains. I think you've mistaken me for someone else, Colonel, she said carefully. Sullivan's weathered face showed no emotion as he placed another document on the table. It was a personnel file with her photograph, not the current one with brown hair cut in a regulation bob, but from before, when she wore her blonde hair pulled back in a tight braid, her green eyes harder, more focused. The file was stamped with clearance levels that shouldn't exist. Dead-Eye Division, Sullivan said quietly. The most elite sniper unit ever assembled. Officially, it never existed. Unofficially, it changed the course of conflicts in 6 countries. And you, Lieutenant Hayes, were its star performer. Call sign Ghost. Akaut's hand tightened imperceptibly on the cleaning rod. In one fluid motion, she could convert it to a lethal weapon, drive it through Sullivan's carotid artery before he could react. The thought came automatically, a survival instinct she'd never fully suppressed. That file should have been destroyed, she said, finally abandoning the pretense. It was, Sullivan confirmed, along with everything else related to Dead-Eye Division after the Hindu Kush incident. Officially, none of you ever existed. Then how do you have it? Sullivan's expression softened slightly. Because I created Dead-Eye Division, Catherine. I recruited the first generation of operators. I designed the training protocols. I selected the targets. He tapped the personnel file. And I recommended you for the program when your marksmanship scores broke every record at Camp Perry. The revelation hung between them like smoke after a firefight. Kat's mind raced through possibilities and threats, evaluating Sullivan as both potential ally and enemy. What do you want? She asked finally. Sullivan gathered the files and tucked them back into his jacket. I need your help. Secretary Phillips wasn't the first high-profile assassination in recent months. There have been 3 others, all with the same signature impossible shots made to look like accidents or executed with surgical precision. All targets connected to classified military programs. And you think I'm responsible? Kat's voice carried a dangerous edge. No, Sullivan said firmly. I think someone is using Dead-Eye techniques to eliminate targets connected to a classified program. Someone with training similar to yours. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the sound suddenly irritating against the tension in the room. Kat set down the cleaning rod carefully, buying time to process what Sullivan was suggesting. If what you're saying is true, then this shooter would have to be someone from the program, she said. And everyone in my unit died in Afghanistan. I was the only survivor. Sullivan's expression remained unreadable. Are you certain about that? Did you see the bodies? The question struck deep, reopening wounds Kat had fought to close for 3 years. She had seen her team ambushed through her rifle scope, had watched helplessly as they were cut down one by one, while she lay hidden in an overwatch position nearly a mile away. But in the chaos that followed, as she fought her way out of the mountains, with a bullet in her shoulder and shrapnel in her leg, she'd never actually confirmed their deaths. The official report. The official report was a cover-up, Sullivan interrupted, designed to bury the truth about what happened that day, about who betrayed your team. Kat's expression hardened. What do you know about it? Sullivan glanced toward the armory door, ensuring they were still alone. Not here. Meet me at 2100 hours. Officers' Quarters Building 47, Room 212. Come armed but discreet. I'll tell you everything I know. Without waiting for a response, he turned and left the armory, the door closing quietly behind him. Kat stood motionless for several seconds, mind racing with implications and possibilities. After 3 years of carefully maintained anonymity, her past had found her with devastating precision. She reassembled the M24 with mechanical efficiency, her thoughts elsewhere. If Sullivan was right, if one of her former teammates was alive and killing high-profile targets, then everything she'd believed for 3 years was a lie. And if Sullivan was wrong, if this was some kind of trap, then her carefully constructed new life was already unraveling. Either way, Catherine Reynolds, the supply clerk, had just ceased to exist. Ghost was back in play. Bounce. The memories came unbidden as Kat drove back to her small off-base apartment. Images of Fort Bragg in the early 2000s, when the War on Terror was still new and America's military machine was shifting to face an entirely different kind of enemy. She remembered the day Colonel Sullivan, then Major Sullivan, had approached her at the shooting range. She'd just set a new marksmanship record, putting 20 consecutive rounds into a target the size of a playing card at 800 meters. Most snipers would consider 10 hits exceptional. "Lieutenant Hayes," he'd said, watching as she cleaned her rifle, "how would you like to make a real difference in this war?" The question had seemed strange. As an Army sniper, she was already in a position to make a difference. But Sullivan had been recruiting for something else entirely, a unit so classified that its members would officially cease to exist, operating in shadows beyond the reach of congressional oversight or Geneva Conventions. Deadeye Division. 8 operators, each selected for specific skills that made them the most lethal precision strike force ever assembled. Their commander was William Iron Cooper, a former Force Recon Marine with nerves of steel and tactical brilliance. Michael Eagle Reynolds served as Kat's spotter, able to read wind and weather conditions with almost supernatural accuracy. Rebecca Oracle Sanchez handled communications and intelligence, while David Doc Martinez kept them alive through injuries that would have killed lesser operators. They trained together for 6 months at a black site in Nevada, pushing the boundaries of what was possible with a rifle and scope. They learned to execute shots that defied physics and probability shots at extreme distances in impossible weather conditions against moving targets. They studied anatomy to understand exactly where to place a bullet for maximum effect. They became something more than soldiers, more than snipers. They became weapons. Kat parked outside her apartment building, a nondescript structure chosen specifically because it was unremarkable. Her unit was on the 2nd floor facing east, with clear sightlines to the surrounding area. Old habits died hard even after 3 years of pretending to be normal. Inside the apartment was Spartan, but not suspiciously so. A few personal photographs, all staged with people who didn't exist, adorned the walls. The furniture was comfortable but inexpensive, nothing that would draw attention or be difficult to abandon at a moment's notice. Kat moved directly to the bedroom closet, pushing aside hanging clothes to reveal a small keypad hidden in the back wall. She entered a 12-digit code, and a section of the wall slid silently aside, revealing a hidden room barely larger than a walk-in closet. Inside was everything Catherine Reynolds wasn't supposed to possess: a custom Remington 700 rifle with match-grade barrel and specialized scope, 3 handguns with suppressors, $50,000 in various currencies, 6 passports with different identities, communication equipment, medical supplies, and a laptop containing encrypted files on various subjects of interest. She hadn't accessed this room in months, had almost convinced herself she kept these items purely out of paranoia rather than necessity. Now, as she checked the weapons and equipment with practiced efficiency, she wondered if some part of her had always known this day would come. Kat retrieved the laptop and powered it on, entering a complex password from memory. The encrypted files contained everything she'd managed to salvage about Deadeye Division before assuming her new identity: mission logs, personnel files, target assessments. She navigated to the file labeled Hindu Kush Incident and opened it, steeling herself against the flood of emotions that accompanied the images. The mission had seemed routine. By their standards, infiltrate the mountains along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border to observe and potentially eliminate a high-value target believed to be coordinating attacks against coalition forces. Intelligence had placed Aziz Rahman, a key Taliban commander, at a compound nestled high in the mountains. Cooper had selected a standard deployment pattern. Kat would establish an overwatch position on a ridge with commanding views of the valley, while the rest of the team approached the target location from multiple angles. The operation was supposed to last 72 hours: insertion, confirmation, elimination, if authorized, and extraction. Everything had gone according to plan until the second night. Kat was in position, maintaining overwatch through her scope, when she saw the first sign of trouble. Movement on a ridge that should have been clear. Too many figures approaching her team's position from multiple directions. "Overwatch to team leader," she had whispered into her comm. "Multiple hostiles approaching your position from the north and east. At least 12 figures armed." Cooper's voice had come back tense but controlled. "Confirmed. We're seeing movement to the south as well. This isn't random. They know we're here." "Pulling back to extraction point, Charlie," Sanchez had added. "ETA 5 minutes. What followed was etched into Kat's memory with horrific clarity. Her teammates had been surrounded, caught in a carefully orchestrated ambush. Through her scope, she'd watched as Cooper directed their defensive response, creating a perimeter in the rocks. As they tried to fight their way to the extraction point, one by one, they'd fallen. Martinez first shot while trying to drag a wounded Sanchez to cover. Then Reynolds, her spotter, killed by what appeared to be a sniper on a distant ridge. Cooper had fought the longest, his rifle claiming multiple enemies, before he, too, disappeared in an explosion that illuminated the night. Kat had remained in position, using her rifle to eliminate as many attackers as possible, creating chaos and confusion that might allow any survivors to escape. But as dawn approached, there was no movement from her team's last position. Only enemy fighters methodically searching the area. A bullet had slammed into the rock beside her head. Then another ripped through her shoulder. Her position compromised, she'd had no choice but to abandon her post and begin the harrowing journey back to friendly territory. 18 hours of crawling, hiding, and evading enemy patrols with a wounded shoulder, and the knowledge that she had failed to protect her team. The official report delivered to her in a military hospital in Germany stated that the entire team had been killed. Their bodies, recovered by a quick reaction force, were shipped home in flag-draped coffins. Kat had attended their funerals, standing at attention in dress uniform as their families received folded flags and empty platitudes about service and sacrifice. 2 months later, still recovering from her wounds, she'd been approached by a stern-faced officer from an agency he refused to name. He offered her a choice: assume a new identity with a non-combat role, or face questions about the failed mission that would never lead anywhere good. The implication was clear: someone needed a scapegoat, and a sniper who had survived while her team died made a convenient target. Kat closed the laptop, the memories too painful to revisit further. Sullivan had suggested the official report was a cover-up that someone had betrayed her team. The thought ignited a slow-burning rage she'd suppressed for 3 years. If Sullivan had evidence, if he knew who was responsible for the deaths of her teammates, then their meeting tonight wasn't optional. She would hear what he had to say, evaluate his claims, and then decide her next move. If he was telling the truth, if one of her teammates had somehow survived and was now executing high-profile assassinations, she needed to know why. And if Sullivan was setting some kind of trap, well, she'd survived worse. Kat checked her watch. 6 hours until the meeting. Time to prepare for any contingency. The officers' quarters at Fort Richardson were housed in a utilitarian 3-story building that had seen better days. Kat approached from the east, having parked her vehicle several blocks away, and proceeded on foot. Old habits never create patterns, never use the most direct route, always have multiple exit strategies. She wore civilian clothes, jeans, boots, and a heavy jacket, appropriate for the Alaskan winter. A knit cap covered her distinctive hair, and a scarf concealed the lower portion of her face. To casual observers, she was just another contractor heading home after a long day. The Glock 19 nestled in a custom holster against her ribs, loaded with subsonic hollow-point ammunition. A backup weapon, a compact SIG P365, was strapped to her ankle. Neither would be detected by the base's minimal security measures for a supply clerk entering the officers' quarters on some mundane errand. Kat scanned the surroundings with practiced precision, noting security camera positions, guard patterns, and potential choke points. The habits of Deadeye Division died hard, even after years of disuse. Building 47 loomed ahead, its windows glowing with warm light against the early evening darkness. Kat entered through a side door, using her base ID to access the building. The hallways were quiet, most officers either at dinner or working late. Room 212 was located at the end of a hallway on the 2nd floor. Kat approached cautiously, listening for any sounds that might indicate an ambush. Sullivan had said to come armed but discreet, an instruction that could be interpreted in multiple ways. She knocked 3 times, then twice more, an old recognition pattern from her Deadeye days. The door opened immediately, revealing Sullivan in civilian clothes. He stepped aside to let her enter, closing and locking the door behind her. The room was standard officers' quarters, a small living area with basic furniture, a kitchenette, and doors leading to what presumably were a bedroom and bathroom. Sullivan had transformed the living area into an impromptu command center. A laptop sat open on the coffee table, surrounded by file folders and photographs. The windows were covered with heavy blackout curtains, and a signal jammer blinked on the kitchen counter, preventing electronic surveillance. "You came," Sullivan said, his tone suggesting he hadn't been entirely certain she would. "You said you had information about who betrayed my team," Kat replied. "That's not something I could ignore." Sullivan gestured toward the couch. "Have a seat. What I'm about to tell you goes against everything in my 30 years of military service. It involves betrayal at the highest levels and a conspiracy that has already claimed dozens of lives." Kat remained standing, her posture subtly balanced for immediate action if necessary. "I'll stand. Just tell me what you know." Sullivan studied her for a moment, then nodded, accepting her caution. He moved to the laptop and turned it to face her. On the screen was a photograph of a distinguished-looking man in his 60s wearing the uniform of a major general in the United States Army. "Victor Harrington," Sullivan said, "currently the head of Special Weapons Development at the Pentagon, former commander of the 5th Special Forces Group, and the man who gave the direct order for your team's final mission in the Hindu Kush." Kat's eyes narrowed as she studied the face on the screen. "I never received orders directly from him, Cooper handled all mission briefings. Exactly. Harrington maintained distance plausible deniability, but he selected the targets authorized the operations, and ultimately he's the one who betrayed your team to enemy forces. The accusation hung in the air, almost too enormous to process. A major general betraying American operators to the enemy. It defied everything Kat had been trained to believe about the chain of command. "That's a serious accusation," she said carefully. "What evidence do you have?" Sullivan opened a file folder and spread several documents across the coffee table. Financial records showing payments to offshore accounts coinciding with dead-eye operations, communication logs indicating information leaks before critical missions. And most damning, this. He held up a photograph that showed Harrington meeting with a man Kat recognized immediately. Aziz Rahman, the Taliban commander who had been their target in the Hindu Kush. "This was taken 2 weeks before your mission," Sullivan continued, "by a CIA asset in Pakistan. It was buried in classified files until I started digging after Secretary Phillips's assassination." Kat's mind raced, processing the implications. Why would he do it? Money. Partly, Sullivan confirmed. The offshore accounts contain over $30 million. But Harrington's motivations go beyond simple greed. He's been systematically eliminating rivals and building his own power base within military intelligence for years. Your team became a liability when you were assigned to target Rahman, a mission Harrington never expected to be authorized. Kat felt a cold rage building inside her but kept her voice level. "If what you're saying is true, why hasn't he been arrested, court-martialed?" Sullivan's expression darkened. "Because he's protected. His connections extend to the highest levels of government and intelligence services. And because, officially, Dead-Eye Division never existed. Your missions were off the books, which means any evidence of betrayal is equally inadmissible." He pointed to the laptop, where Secretary Phillips's assassination photo was now displayed. "These recent killings bear all the hallmarks of Dead-Eye training. Impossible shots, perfect execution, no evidence left behind. And all 4 targets had one thing in common. They were investigating aspects of Harrington's pet project, something called Nemesis." "What's Nemesis?" Kat asked. "I don't know yet, but I believe it's connected to why Harrington betrayed your team. And I believe one of your former teammates is carrying out these assassinations." The statement hit Kat like a physical blow. "That's impossible. They're dead. I saw them die." "Did you?" Sullivan challenged gently. "You saw them fall. You saw explosions and gunfire. But in the chaos of combat with limited visibility and your own position compromised, can you be absolutely certain?" The question pierced the carefully constructed narrative Kat had built to explain that night. She had seen her teammates under fire, had seen them fall. But had she actually confirmed their deaths? Had she seen their bodies? No, she'd been evacuated with her own injuries, and by the time she was debriefed, the official story was already established. "If one of my team survived," she said slowly, "why would they be assassinating high-level officials? And why now, 3 years later?" Sullivan pulled out another file, this one thicker than the others. "Because of this. Dr. Alan Mercer, nuclear physicist and former military consultant. He was killed 2 weeks ago, single shot to the head from approximately 1,200 meters. Officially ruled a hunting accident." He spread photographs across the table, a dead man in hunting gear lying in a forest clearing. The entry wound was small, precise, exactly the kind of shot a Dead-Eye operator would make. Mercer was working on a classified review of the nuclear arsenal. His findings suggested unauthorized access to launch codes and possible tampering with safeguard protocols. The day before his death, he requested an urgent meeting with the Joint Chiefs to discuss critical security vulnerabilities. Sullivan pulled out another photograph, this one showing Mercer meeting with someone in what appeared to be a secure facility. This is from security footage at Los Alamos. The person Mercer is meeting with has been identified as Major Michael Reynolds. Kat stared at the image, her heart racing. Reynolds, her spotter, the man she'd seen fall through her scope in the mountains of Afghanistan. The image was grainy, the figure partially obscured, but the posture and build were unmistakably familiar. "Reynolds is alive," she whispered, her voice uncharacteristically vulnerable. "It appears so," Sullivan confirmed. "And he's not the only one. We have partial facial recognition matches suggesting Rebecca Sanchez accessed a secure terminal at the NSA headquarters 3 months ago. And there are unconfirmed reports of someone matching William Cooper's description at a private military contractor facility in Virginia." The revelations cascaded through Kat's consciousness, shattering the foundation of grief and guilt she'd built her new identity upon. Her teammates, her family potentially alive. But if they were alive, why had they allowed her to believe they were dead for 3 years? And why were they now involved in assassinating government officials? "I need more than grainy photos and unconfirmed reports," she said, her professional detachment reasserting itself. "If what you're saying is true, if Harrington betrayed us and my team survived, where have they been for 3 years, and why are they killing these specific targets?" Sullivan's weathered face showed a flash of approval at her skepticism. "Those are exactly the questions we need to answer. I believe Harrington's Nemesis project is at the center of it all. And I believe your former teammates are either working to expose it or they've been compromised and are now eliminating threats to it." He closed the laptop, his expression grave. "I need your help, Catherine. You're the only Deadeye operator I can locate with certainty, and you're the only one whose motivations I can trust." Kat moved to the window, pulling the curtain aside a fraction to glance at the darkened base outside. The implications of Sullivan's revelations were staggering: betrayal at the highest levels, teammates potentially alive, a conspiracy reaching into the heart of military command. If true, it meant everything she'd believed for 3 years was a carefully constructed lie. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" she asked, letting the curtain fall back into place. "Help me find your teammates," Sullivan said simply. "Help me uncover what Nemesis is and how it connects to Harrington's betrayal. And if necessary, help me stop whoever is carrying out these assassinations before they trigger a national security crisis." Kat turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "And if I refuse? If I walk out that door and disappear? Then I suspect you'll be the next target," Sullivan replied gravely. "Whoever is behind these killings has been systematically eliminating anyone connected to Deadeye Division or Harrington's activities. The only reason you've been safe so far is because your new identity has been effective. But now that I've found you, it's only a matter of time before they do too." The truth of his words settled over her like a physical weight. Her carefully constructed anonymity was already compromised. If Sullivan had tracked her down, others could too. "I need time to think," she said finally. "And I need access to everything you have on these assassinations on Harrington and on any sightings of my former teammates." Sullivan nodded, reaching into his pocket to withdraw a small encrypted flash drive. "Everything I have is on here. Review it, verify what you can. I'll be here until 0600 tomorrow. After that, I'm meeting with contacts who may have additional information on Nemesis." Kat took the drive, securing it in an inner pocket. "I'm not committing to anything yet, but I'll look at what you have." "That's all I'm asking for now," Sullivan said. "But Catherine, be careful. If I found you, others might too. Watch your surroundings. The warning was unnecessary. 3 years of peace hadn't dulled the survival instincts hammered into her during Deadeye training. Kat moved to the door, pausing with her hand on the knob. If you're playing me, Colonel, if this is some kind of setup or psyop, you should know I haven't forgotten how to disappear, and I haven't forgotten how to eliminate threats. Sullivan's expression remained steady. I would expect nothing less from Ghost. Kat slipped out of the room and into the darkened hallway, her mind already processing escape routes and security measures. The weight of the flash drive in her pocket felt like a live grenade, with the pin halfway pulled. Whatever it contained would either validate Sullivan's claims or expose his deception. Either way, Catherine Reynolds, the supply clerk, had lived her last day. Ghost was awake again, and she wouldn't rest until she found the truth about her team, about Harrington's betrayal, and about who was hunting from the shadows. The apartment felt different when Kat returned vulnerable, exposed a place she could no longer trust. She moved through the rooms methodically, checking for signs of intrusion or surveillance. Everything appeared undisturbed, but experience had taught her that the best infiltrations left no trace. She connected Sullivan's flash drive to her secure laptop, running multiple virus scans before accessing the contents. The files were extensive surveillance photos, classified reports, financial records, and intelligence assessments, all pointing to a conspiracy centered around General Harrington and something called Project Nemesis. The most disturbing files were those containing possible sightings of her former teammates. Sullivan hadn't exaggerated. There were multiple instances of individuals matching their descriptions appearing at secure facilities, military installations, and government buildings in the months preceding each assassination. One video clip showed a man resembling Cooper entering a Department of Energy building 3 days before a senior official there died in an apparent suicide. The official had been found with a gunshot wound to the head, ruled self-inflicted, despite the awkward angle and lack of powder residue. Another file contained surveillance photos of a woman who could be Sanchez accessing a secure terminal at the NSA using credentials that passed all security protocols but belonged to an employee who had been on medical leave. The evidence wasn't conclusive, but it was compelling. Kat found herself torn between hope that her teammates had survived and fear of what they might have become. Had they been turned brainwashed? Or were they pursuing their own investigation into Harrington's betrayal? As dawn approached, Kat came to a decision. She would work with Sullivan cautiously, keeping her own counsel to find her teammates and uncover the truth about Project Nemesis. But she would maintain her own operational security, establish safe houses and escape routes, and be prepared to disappear again if necessary. She began systematic preparations, gathering essential equipment from her hidden room and packing it into a nondescript duffel bag. Weapons, ammunition, communication gear, medical supplies, cash, and false identification, everything she would need to operate independently if Sullivan proved untrustworthy. As she worked, a subtle noise from the living room froze her in place, the nearly imperceptible sound of metal against metal, like a lock being manipulated by expert hands. Someone was attempting to enter her apartment. Kat drew her Glock, silently moving to a position with clear sightlines to the front door, but concealed from immediate view. Her mind calculated angles, cover positions, and escape routes, automatically combat instincts overriding 3 years of civilian pretense. The lock disengaged with a soft click and the door opened slowly. A figure slipped inside, male approximately 6 feet tall, moving with the fluid grace of someone trained in covert entry. His face was obscured by a balaclava, but his movements were hauntingly familiar. Kat held her position, controlling her breathing as the intruder swept the main living area with practiced efficiency. He moved to the kitchen, then the bedroom, his search methodical and professional. When he approached the closet with her hidden room, Kat made her decision. "Stop right there." She ordered, her voice deadly calm, as she emerged from cover with her weapon trained on the intruder's center mass. "Hands where I can see them." The figure froze, then slowly raised his hands. "Been a long time, Ghost," he said, his voice muffled by the balaclava, but unmistakably familiar. "Take off the mask," Kat commanded, her aim unwavering. The intruder complied, pulling the balaclava up to reveal a face Kat had last seen through a rifle scope in the mountains of Afghanistan, Michael Reynolds, her former spotter, and the man she'd believed dead for 3 years. "Hello, Catherine," Reynolds said, a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Looks like we've got a lot to catch up on." Kat's weapon remained steady, though her mind reeled with questions. "You're supposed to be dead." "So are you," Reynolds countered. "Catherine Reynolds, nice cover. Almost didn't find you." "Why are you here?" Kat demanded, unwilling to lower her weapon despite the shock of seeing her former teammate alive. Reynolds glanced around the apartment, his expression turning serious. "Same reason Sullivan found you. Someone's killing people connected to Deadeye, and they're using our techniques to do it." "And how do I know you're not that someone?" Kat asked coldly. Reynolds smiled again, but there was no warmth in it. "If I wanted you dead, Ghost, you wouldn't have heard me coming." It was true, and they both knew it. Reynolds had been one of the best in infiltration tactics, able to move through hostile territory like a shadow. "Sullivan told me you were spotted at Los Alamos with Dr. Mercer before he was killed," Kat said, still not lowering her weapon. "I was trying to protect him." Reynolds replied, his expression darkening. "Failed, obviously. Just like I'm trying to protect you. We need to move, Catherine. Your position is compromised. Sullivan's too." "How do you know about Sullivan?" "Because I've been watching him for months. He's getting close to the truth about Nemesis, and that makes him a target." Reynolds checked his watch. "We have maybe 15 minutes before a cleanup team arrives. They followed Sullivan to your armory yesterday, then to his quarters last night. They know he's found you." The tactical situation clarified instantly in Kat's mind. If Reynolds was telling the truth, staying meant confrontation with unknown hostile forces. Leaving meant trusting a man who had been missing, presumed dead for 3 years. "Where would we go?" she asked, finally lowering her weapon slightly. "Somewhere safe. Somewhere we can talk properly." Reynolds moved toward the window, checking the street below. "Cooper is waiting with transport. Sanchez is running interference on surveillance systems. Just like old times." The mention of her other teammates sent a jolt through Kat's system. "They're alive, too. All of you." Reynolds turned back to her, his expression a complex mixture of emotions. "Not all of us. Martinez didn't make it. But the rest of us survived. And we've been working to uncover who betrayed us, and why." He gestured toward her half-packed bag. "Finish what you were doing. 2 minutes, then we move." Kat made her decision. She holstered her weapon and quickly completed her preparations, securing essential equipment and destroying anything that might provide intelligence to whoever was coming. As she worked, she asked the question that had been burning in her mind. "Why didn't you contact me 3 years, Reynolds? I thought you were all dead." Reynolds checked his weapon, a suppressed Sig Sauer, while watching the street. "We couldn't risk it. After the ambush, we didn't know who to trust. Harrington had connections everywhere. We had to disappear completely, establish new identities, gather intelligence. By the time we confirmed you'd survived, you were already established in your new life here. Cooper thought it was safer to leave you out of it." "Out of what exactly?" Kat demanded, zipping the duffel bag closed. "The hunt for Harrington," Reynolds replied grimly, "and the truth about Project Nemesis. It goes deeper than you can imagine, Catherine. All the way to the top." He moved to the door, checking the hallway, before turning back to her. "Ready." Kat shouldered her bag, the weight of weapons and equipment familiar after years of absence. "Lead the way, Eagle." Reynolds smiled at the use of his old call sign. "Good to have you back, Ghost." They slipped from the apartment into the pre-dawn darkness, leaving Catherine Reynolds behind forever. As they moved through shadow toward an uncertain rendezvous, Kat felt the familiar tension of combat readiness settling into her muscles. Questions burned in her mind about her teammates' survival, about Sullivan's role, about Harrington's betrayal, and the mysterious Project Nemesis. But underlying it all was a dangerous sense of homecoming. For 3 years she had existed in the twilight between civilian life and her true nature. Now, moving through darkness with tactical precision alongside a teammate she'd mourned, Kat felt the return of something essential that had been missing. Ghost was back in the hunt, and this time the targets wouldn't be distant figures through a scope. This time she was hunting the people who had destroyed her team and stolen 3 years of her life. And when she found them, no distance would be far enough to escape her vengeance. Dawn broke over the Alaskan wilderness, painting the snow-covered landscape in shades of gold and amber. The unmarked SUV navigated the winding mountain roads with practiced precision, its tired wipers struggling against the gentle snowfall. Inside, Kat sat rigid in the passenger seat, her eyes constantly scanning the terrain through tactical glasses that enhanced visibility in low-light conditions. William Cooper drove in silence, his weathered hands gripping the wheel with the steady confidence he'd once used to command their unit. The former Deadeye commander looked older than his 54 years. Silver threading through his close-cropped dark hair, new lines etched into his face by years of operating in shadows. "We're being followed," Kat said quietly, noting the distant headlights that had maintained a consistent 3/4-mile gap for the past 20 minutes. Cooper nodded without looking back. "Sullivan's security detail. 2-man team in a government-issue Suburban. They've been with us since we left Anchorage." "And you're comfortable with that?" "No." Cooper admitted, his voice carrying the same authoritative calm that had steadied them through countless missions. "But Sullivan insisted, and we need his resources." In the back seat, Reynolds checked his weapon for the 3rd time, a ritual Kat recognized as his way of managing pre-mission tension. Their reunion had been brief, and professional emotions kept carefully in check. There would be time for personal reconnections later if they survived what was coming. "ETA to Elkhorn Ridge?" Reynolds asked. 20 minutes, Cooper replied. "Weather's holding for now, but satellite shows another system moving in from the northwest. Visibility will drop to less than half a mile by noon." Kat studied Cooper's profile, searching for signs of the man she'd once trusted with her life. He seemed harder now, more closed off, but the tactical precision that had made him a legendary commander was still evident in every decision and movement. "Are you going to tell me where we're really going?" she asked. "Because Elkhorn Ridge was a decoy location in your message." Cooper's mouth twitched in what might have been the ghost of a smile. "Still sharp, Ghost. We're heading to a safe house near Denali. Established it 18 months ago as a fallback position if our primary locations were compromised." "Which they were," Reynolds added grimly. 2 days ago, someone hit our Seattle Operations Center. Professional job tactical team, flashbangs, precision, elimination. They knew exactly what they were looking for." "And what was that?" Kat asked. "Our Project Nemesis files," Cooper replied. "Everything we've gathered on Harrington's operation. 3 years of intelligence gone in 6 minutes." The implications settled heavily in the vehicle. Someone had compromised their security, identified their location, and executed a precision strike to eliminate intelligence. It bore all the hallmarks of a professional counterintelligence operation. Fortunately, Reynolds said, Sanchez maintains offline backups at each safe house. Standard protocol since Hindu Kush. Kat turned to look at him directly. I want to know everything, Reynolds, from the beginning. How you survived where you've been for 3 years, and what exactly Project Nemesis is. Cooper exchanged a glance with Reynolds in the rearview mirror, then nodded almost imperceptibly. You've earned that much, he agreed. But not here. Wait until we reach the safe house and can secure proper counter-surveillance measures. The SUV turned off the main highway onto a barely visible access road that wound deeper into the wilderness. The terrain grew more challenging, the vehicle's all-wheel drive system struggling against the combination of fresh snow and steep incline. We're being tracked, Reynolds said suddenly, checking a small device that resembled a modified smartphone. Signal's faint, but it's there. Could be on the vehicle or our equipment. Cooper's expression hardened. Sullivan's detail. Possible, Reynolds conceded, but their tech signature is different from what we've seen before. Change of plans, Cooper decided instantly. We'll use contingency route B. Reynolds prepped the countermeasures. Without further discussion, Cooper executed a precise J-turn on the narrow mountain road, the SUV briefly sliding before the tires found purchase on the icy surface. The maneuver would have thrown less experienced operators against their restraints, but Kat braced automatically, her body remembering the rhythms of tactical driving. Reynolds reached beneath his seat, extracting what appeared to be a standard first aid kit. Inside was a collection of electronic countermeasure devices designed to disrupt tracking systems and communication networks. 50 seconds, he announced, activating a timer. Cooper accelerated back down the mountain road, his driving exhibiting the precision control of someone who had trained in extreme conditions. After exactly 45 seconds, he veered off the road onto what appeared to be a game trail, barely wide enough for their vehicle. Brace, he commanded. The SUV plunged through a dense section of pine trees, branches scraping against the reinforced exterior. Cooper navigated the narrow passage with inches to spare on either side, finally emerging onto a frozen creek bed that provided a natural corridor through the dense forest. Countermeasures active, Reynolds announced, as a series of small electronic pulses disabled any potential tracking devices within a 20-meter radius. We're dark. Cooper continued along the creek bed for nearly a mile before turning back into the forest, following a route that showed no visible markings or trail signs. Kat recognized the technique, a predetermined escape route, with navigation points known only to team members, impossible for pursuers to anticipate. After 20 minutes of evasive driving, they emerged at the base of a steep ridge. The safe house was barely visible, a structure designed to blend with the surrounding environment, its roof covered with natural materials that mimicked the forest floor when viewed from above. Home sweet home, Reynolds muttered as Cooper parked the SUV in a natural depression that would shield it from aerial surveillance. They moved quickly from the vehicle to the safe house, maintaining tactical spacing and scanning for potential threats. Kat fell into the familiar rhythms of team movement, automatically her body remembering patterns established through countless training exercises and combat operations. The safe house interior was Spartan but functional, a main room with communications equipment and tactical planning space, a small kitchen area, 2 bedrooms and a bathroom with medical supplies. Every aspect was designed for operational efficiency rather than comfort. A figure emerged from the communications room as they entered Rebecca Sanchez. Her black hair cut shorter than Kat remembered her movements, carrying the same precise efficiency that had made her an invaluable intelligence specialist. You found her, Sanchez said, her eyes meeting Kat's with a complex mixture of emotions. "Welcome back, Ghost." The reunion should have been emotional. Team members believed dead reuniting after years of separation. But they were all too disciplined, too conditioned by years of operations to indulge in emotional displays that might compromise their focus. "Secure the perimeter," Cooper ordered, immediately falling into command mode. "Standard protocol, motion sensors, thermal imaging, counter-sniper positions. Reynolds, run a full electronic sweep. Sanchez, prepare the briefing materials." They moved with practiced efficiency, each assuming their role without discussion. Kat found herself automatically assisting Reynolds with the security measures, their old partnership reasserting itself as they established a defensive perimeter around the safe house. 3 years, Kat said quietly, as they placed motion sensors in the tree line. 3 years, Reynolds, and not a word. I mourned you. All of you. Reynolds's hands never paused in their work, but his voice softened slightly. We mourned you too at first. Intel said you'd been killed during extraction. It wasn't until 6 months later that Sanchez found evidence you'd survived and been given a new identity. And you didn't think to make contact. Cooper's call, Reynolds replied. He said you'd been given a chance at a normal life away from all this. He didn't want to drag you back into the darkness. Kat's expression hardened. That wasn't his decision to make? No, Reynolds agreed. But we were all compromised, Catherine, hunted by our own government, operating without support or official sanction. Cooper was trying to protect you. The explanation did little to ease the sense of betrayal that had been building since Sullivan's revelations. Kat finished placing the final sensor before responding. I spent 3 years believing I failed you, that my position was compromised, that I couldn't provide adequate overwatch. Do you have any idea what that does to a person, Reynolds? He met her gaze directly for the first time. Actually, I do. Because we spent those same years believing we failed you, that we left you behind to die in those mountains. The raw honesty in his voice penetrated Kat's carefully maintained defenses. Before she could respond, Cooper's voice came through their tactical earpieces. Perimeter secure. Everyone inside for briefing. The moment of connection broken, they returned to the safe house in silence. Inside, Cooper had transformed the main room into an operations center. Maps and photographs covered one wall, while digital displays showed surveillance footage and intelligence analyses. In the center, a tactical planning table held 3-dimensional terrain models and equipment specifications. Take a seat, Cooper directed as they gathered around the table. Sanchez will begin the briefing. Sanchez activated a digital display showing a complex organizational chart with General Victor Harrington at the center. Radiating outward were connections to military personnel, defense contractors, government officials, and foreign entities. Project Nemesis, she began without preamble. Officially designated as an advanced sniper training program developed to create specialized elimination units for counter-terrorism operations. In reality, it's Harrington's private assassination program designed to eliminate threats to his power base and advance his political agenda. She brought up photographs of military personnel in training scenarios. Harrington began recruiting candidates immediately after Deadeye Division was officially disbanded. Unlike our unit, which selected operators based on exceptional skill and psychological stability, Nemesis prioritizes psychological malleability and absolute loyalty to Harrington personally. The display shifted to show training facilities and equipment specifications. They've replicated our techniques, our operational protocols, even our specialized equipment. But with one critical difference, Nemesis operators are conditioned using experimental psychological techniques to ensure compliance without question. Brainwashing, Kat said flatly. More sophisticated than that, Sanchez corrected. Targeted neurochemical conditioning combined with specialized psychological protocols. The result is operators with skills comparable to Deadeye, but without the moral framework or independent judgment. Cooper took over, pointing to a separate display showing timeline analyses of recent assassinations. For the past 18 months, Nemesis operators have been systematically eliminating individuals who pose threats to Harrington's operation. Initially, these were former military personnel who had knowledge of Deadeye Division. Then they expanded to government officials, investigating unusual defense expenditures. Now they're targeting high-level officials with access to nuclear command structures. Why nuclear? Kat asked, studying the pattern of eliminations. That's what we've been trying to determine, Cooper replied grimly. Our best intelligence suggests Harrington is positioning for some kind of coup within military command structures. The targets eliminated recently all held positions related to nuclear security protocols or command authorization. Reynolds added, Secretary Phillips was the third member of the Nuclear Command Authority to die in suspicious circumstances within the past year. If this pattern continues, Harrington could potentially compromise the entire nuclear command structure. The implications were staggering: a rogue general with personal control over nuclear weapons, commanding a force of conditioned assassins trained to execute without question. It went beyond personal betrayal into the realm of existential national security threat. And Sullivan, Kat asked, where does he fit into all this? Complicated, Sanchez admitted. He was Harrington's mentor and superior officer for years. When evidence of Nemesis first emerged, we assumed Sullivan was complicit. It wasn't until he began his own investigation that we realized he might be an ally. Or setting a trap, Kat countered. He found me too easily, and he knew exactly where to look for the Deadeye insignia on that M24. Cooper nodded approvingly. We've maintained similar skepticism. That's why we've limited his access to our operations. He provides intelligence and resources, but remains compartmentalized from our core planning. Which brings us to why we needed to find you, Reynolds said. 3 weeks ago, Harrington's security protocols changed dramatically. New personnel, new communication systems, enhanced counter-surveillance. Something big is happening, and we need to infiltrate his inner circle to find out what. Sanchez activated another display showing the profile of a defense contractor. Vertex Dynamics, officially a cutting-edge weapons development company specializing in precision guidance systems. Unofficially, Harrington's private research and development division for Project Nemesis. They're hosting a major fundraising gala next week in Seattle, exclusive attendance, highest-level security, and Harrington will be present personally. We need to get inside, Cooper stated. Extract intelligence on whatever operation Harrington is preparing, and if necessary, eliminate the threat. Kat studied the facility schematics and security protocols displayed on the screen. The defenses were formidable multiple layers of physical security, electronic surveillance, and counterintelligence measures. Infiltrating such a facility would challenge even Deadeye's considerable skills. "And you want me for this operation?" she said, understanding dawning. "Because I'm the only one Harrington hasn't identified as a survivor." "Precisely," Cooper confirmed. "Harrington knows Reynolds, Sanchez, and I survived. He's been hunting us for 3 years. But you officially killed in action, given a new identity. Through classified channels, you're the ghost he doesn't see coming." The plan was both elegant and desperate. Use Kat's presumed dead status to insert her into the heart of Harrington's operation, gathering intelligence that could expose Project Nemesis and prevent whatever catastrophic event the general was planning. "There's more," Sanchez said quietly. We have reason to believe Harrington wasn't working alone in betraying Deadeye Division. The operational complexity, the level of intelligence compromise it suggests involvement from someone with intimate knowledge of our protocols. Someone inside the unit. Kat asked, the implication sending a chill through her that had nothing to do with the Alaskan winter outside. Possibly, Cooper acknowledged, his expression grave. Or someone in the command structure with direct oversight. Sullivan, Kat suggested. He's a candidate, Cooper agreed. But there are others. The circle of people who knew about Deadeye Division was small but not insignificant. Reynolds leaned forward, his expression intense. That's why we've maintained operational security even with Sullivan. Until we know definitively who betrayed us in Hindu Kush, everyone remains a potential threat. The briefing continued for another hour, with Sanchez providing detailed intelligence on Vertex Dynamics, its security systems, and the upcoming gala event. The plan took shape. Kat would attend as Catherine Reynolds, a representative of a smaller defense contractor seeking partnership opportunities. Her background identity was already established and would withstand routine scrutiny. "What about Sullivan?" Kat asked as the briefing concluded. "He's expecting me to contact him." "We'll handle Sullivan," Cooper decided. "Maintain minimal communication. Tell him you're following leads independently. He knows how Deadeye operators work. He'll expect you to establish your own operational parameters." The tactical planning complete, they moved to equipment preparation. The safe house contained an impressive arsenal, weapons, tactical gear, communication systems, and specialized infiltration equipment that would have been the envy of any special operations unit. As Kat inspected a custom-modified Glock 19 with noise and flash suppressor, Cooper approached her privately. "We need to talk," he said, his voice pitched low enough that the others couldn't hear. "About what happened in Hindu Kush." Kat continued her weapon inspection, her movements precise and controlled. 3 years late for that conversation, wouldn't you say? Catherine, Cooper's use of her real name caught her attention. "I know what you saw through that scope. I know what you believe happened to us. But there's more to the story, things you couldn't have seen from your position." She finally looked up, meeting his gaze directly. "Then tell me. All of it." Cooper glanced toward Reynolds and Sanchez, who were busy with their own preparations. "Not here. Not now. After everyone's settled in. There are things the others don't know. Things I've kept compartmentalized for their protection." The admission raised more questions than it answered, but Kat recognized the tactical necessity of information compartmentalization. In operations where betrayal was possible, limiting knowledge could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. "Tonight," she agreed. "Full disclosure." Cooper nodded once, then rejoined the others to continue mission preparations. Kat watched him go, her mind processing the implications of his statement. If Cooper had been keeping secrets from Reynolds and Sanchez, what else might he be hiding? And could she trust him or any of them after 3 years of deception and separation? Night fell over the safe house. The dense forest surrounding them transformed into a landscape of shadows and silence. Inside, the team had established a rotating watch schedule, with one operator always monitoring security systems while the others rested. Kat found Cooper alone in the communications room, reviewing satellite imagery of the Vertex Dynamics facility. He acknowledged her arrival with a slight nod, then secured the door behind her. "What I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this room," he began without preamble. "Not Reynolds, not Sanchez, not Sullivan. This stays between us until the mission is complete." "Understood," Kat replied, settling into a chair opposite him. Cooper's weathered face showed the strain of 3 years operating without support, hunting, and being hunted. The ambush in Hindu Kush wasn't just a betrayal, Catherine. It was a test, a field evaluation of Harrington's earliest nemesis operators against established Dead-Eye personnel. The revelation struck Kat like a physical blow. He used us as training targets. Worse, Cooper's voice hardened. He used us as proof of concept. If his nemesis operators could eliminate an entire Dead-Eye team, it would validate his program and secure continued funding and support from certain elements within military command. But you survived, Kat pointed out. Not according to plan, Cooper acknowledged. Martinez died immediately, sniper shot to the head from extreme range. Professional precise. Sanchez was wounded, but I managed to get her to cover. Reynolds took shrapnel from an RPG but remained operational. We fought our way to the emergency extraction point, called in our own assets, using protocols outside the official mission parameters. Assets Harrington didn't know about, Kat surmised. Exactly. Every Dead-Eye commander established independent extraction options after the Azerbaijan incident. Harrington knew our official protocols, but not the contingencies I'd established personally. The tactical logic was sound. After a previous mission had been compromised through official channels, Cooper had created backup plans known only to him and select team members. It explained how they could have escaped a situation that appeared unsurvivable through Kat's rifle scope. "Why let me believe you were dead?" She asked the question that had been burning inside her since Reynolds' appearance. Cooper's expression softened slightly. "That wasn't the plan. Intel reported you killed during extraction sniper fire while boarding a helicopter. We mourned you, Catherine. It wasn't until Sanchez hacked classified personnel files 6 months later that we discovered you'd been given a new identity and relocated." "And still you kept your distance," Kat pressed. "Because by then we understood what we were facing," Cooper explained. Harrington's reach extended throughout military and intelligence communities. Anyone connected to us was in danger. You had been given a chance at a new life, protected by your presumed dead status. I made the call to leave you there safe in anonymity. The explanation was tactically sound, but emotionally unsatisfying. 3 years of grief and guilt might have been avoided with a single secure communication, a coded message that only she would understand. "There's more," Cooper continued. "Something I haven't shared with Reynolds or Sanchez. The intelligence that sent us to Hindu Kush, the operation targeting Rahman, it didn't come through standard channels. It came directly from Sullivan." Kat processed this new information, fitting it into the evolving picture of betrayal and conspiracy. "Sullivan set us up." "I don't know," Cooper admitted, a rare confession of uncertainty from a commander known for decisive judgment. The intelligence was solid. Rahman was exactly where Sullivan said he would be. But the precision of the ambush, the coordination of the attack, someone provided our operational details to the enemy forces. If Sullivan was working with Harrington, then we're walking into another trap by trusting him now, Cooper finished. Which is why I've maintained operational security even with our own team. If Sullivan is compromised, the less Reynolds and Sanchez know about our suspicions, the safer they'll be if things go sideways. The tactical caution was something Kat understood intimately. In their world, trust was a vulnerability that could be exploited with lethal consequences. Compartmentalization wasn't just protocol, it was survival. "What's our play then?" she asked, falling naturally into the operational planning rhythm they'd established years ago. "We proceed with the infiltration of Vertex Dynamics," Cooper decided, "but with enhanced contingencies. You'll attend the gala as planned, but I'll position independently as Overwatch. Reynolds and Sanchez will coordinate support, but without knowledge of our suspicions regarding Sullivan. And if Sullivan is compromised, Then we eliminate the threat, Cooper stated flatly, regardless of his former status or connection to the unit. The cold precision of Cooper's contingency planning was familiar, the hallmark of a commander who prioritized mission success and team survival above all other considerations. It was what had made him legendary among special operations communities and what had kept Deadeye Division alive through missions that would have decimated conventional units. "There's one more thing you should know," Cooper added, his voice taking on a gravity that commanded Kat's complete attention. "Project Nemesis isn't just about creating elite assassins. According to intelligence we've gathered, Harrington is positioning for control of Nuclear Release Authority. The recent eliminations, Secretary Phillips, Dr. Mercer, General Holloway, they were all members of the Nuclear Command Authority. He's creating a pathway to nuclear weapons control," Kat concluded, the full implications dawning with horrifying clarity. "With operators conditioned for absolute loyalty and zero moral constraint," Cooper confirmed. "If he succeeds, Harrington would effectively control the most powerful weapons in history outside any legitimate command structure or oversight." The stakes clarified in Kat's mind, beyond personal vengeance for betrayal, beyond justice for fallen comrades. They were facing a threat to national security at the most fundamental level, orchestrated by a man with both the expertise and resources to succeed. "I'm in," she said simply. "Whatever it takes." Cooper nodded, the weight of command evident in his expression. "Get some rest. Training begins at 0500. We have 6 days to prepare you for insertion." As Kat left the communications room, she found Reynolds waiting in the hallway, his expression unreadable. Whether he had overheard their conversation was impossible to determine. Reynolds had always been exceptionally skilled at concealing his thoughts. "Everything all right?" he asked, his tone casual, but his eyes watchful. "Just finalizing operational details," Kat replied smoothly. "Cooper wants to begin training at first light." Reynolds nodded, accepting her answer without further questioning. "I've prepared the East bedroom for you. Basic gear, tactical clothing, personal items. Not much, but functional." "Thanks," Kat said, then hesitated. "Reynolds, it's good to see you alive, despite everything." A small smile touched his lips, genuine emotion briefly visible through his professional demeanor. "You too, Ghost. More than you know." The moment of connection passed quickly, both of them too disciplined to indulge in emotions that might compromise their focus. But as Kat entered her assigned room and began a security check, old habits ensuring no surveillance or threats existed, she felt the first genuine stirrings of something she'd thought long dead, the sense of belonging to a team, to a purpose larger than survival. Whether that team was truly intact, whether trust could be rebuilt after years of separation and secrets remained to be seen. But for now, Ghost was back with her unit, preparing for a mission that would test every skill and bond they possessed. Dawn broke over the Alaskan wilderness, painting the snow-covered landscape in shades of pink and gold. Inside the safe house, training had already been underway for an hour. Kat moved through the main room, which had been reconfigured into a simulation of the Vertex Dynamics Gala venue. "Your cover is Catherine Reynolds, Development Director for Axiom Defense Systems." Sanchez instructed, monitoring Kat's movements through specialized glasses that recorded and analyzed behavioral patterns. "You have legitimate credentials in weapons systems integration, which provides natural context for your interest in Vertex." Kat moved through the simulated space with practiced precision, her body language and expressions calibrated to project confident professionalism without drawing undue attention. "Background?" she asked, practicing the subtle art of conversational intelligence gathering. "Born in Chicago, engineering degree from MIT, recruited by Axiom 5 years ago, after a successful stint at Raytheon. Clean background, legitimate security clearances, no red flags that would trigger enhanced scrutiny. The cover identity was elegant in its simplicity, close enough to Kat's actual background to be maintained convincingly under pressure, but distinct enough from Catherine Hayes to avoid recognition by anyone who might have known her former self. Primary objective is intelligence gathering, Cooper reminded them, watching the simulation from a tactical position that mimicked where he would be during the actual operation. Specifically, any information regarding Harrington's nuclear command structure infiltration. Reynolds, playing the role of a Vertex security officer, approached Kat with the measured suspicion appropriate to his position. "Ma'am, this area is restricted to authorized personnel only." Kat shifted her body language subtly, projecting apologetic confusion rather than defensive tension. "I'm sorry, I was looking for the presentation on guided munitions systems. The program said it would be in the East Wing." "That presentation has been moved to the main ballroom," Reynolds replied, his scrutiny professional but not overtly suspicious. "Allow me to escort you back to the public areas." The interaction demonstrated the subtle dance of infiltration, not avoiding security but managing it through psychological techniques that minimized threat perception. Kat had always excelled at these aspects of covert operations, her ability to modulate her presence making her invaluable for deep cover assignments. "Good," Sanchez approved as the simulation continued. "Your nonverbal cues are consistent with your cover identity. Just remember to maintain the same precision when under stress." And the training continued throughout the morning, progressing from social engineering scenarios to more technical aspects of the mission. By midday, they had transitioned to the small clearing behind the safe house, where Cooper had established a makeshift shooting range. "Your skills have degraded," he observed bluntly after Kat's first series of shots with a suppressed Glock 19. The grouping was tight by conventional standards, all rounds within a 3-inch circle at 25 yards, but below Deadeye Division expectations. 3 years as a supply clerk, Kat reminded him, adjusting her stance slightly. Not much opportunity for maintaining sniper qualifications. Cooper handed her a custom-modified M24 sniper rifle similar to the one she'd been cleaning when Sullivan found her, but with advanced optics and a match-grade barrel that extended its effective range. "Reacquaint yourself," he instructed. "We've established a 1,000-yard target on the North Ridge. I want sub-MOA groups by tomorrow morning." The familiar weight of the precision rifle triggered muscle memory that 3 years of disuse couldn't erase. Kat settled into position, her breathing automatically adjusting to the optimal rhythm for long-range shooting. Through the scope, the distant target transformed from a barely visible speck to a clear silhouette. Calculate, breathe, hold, squeeze. The rifle barked its report, muffled by the advanced suppressor. A second later, the target showed impact, not center mass, but within the primary kill zone. Adjustment calculations flowed automatically, windage offset by 3 MOA elevation, requiring 2 MOA compensation. Kat fired again. This time the impact was precisely center mass. "Better," Cooper acknowledged, observing through a spotter's scope. "But still not ghost standard. Keep working. 50 rounds minimum before we break for tactical planning." The next several hours blurred into a rhythm of calculation, breathing control, and precision shooting that had once been as natural as walking. With each shot, Kat felt herself reconnecting with the operative she'd been before Ghost the Phantom, who could deliver death from distances that defied conventional military doctrine. By late afternoon, her groups had tightened to near Deadeye standards. Not perfect, that would require more time and practice, but operational, sufficient for the mission ahead. Inside the safe house, Sanchez had expanded the tactical planning displays to include detailed security protocols for the Vertex Dynamics facility. The complexity was sobering: multiple layers of physical security, electronic surveillance, biometric access controls, and counterintelligence measures designed to identify and neutralize infiltration attempts. "Standard approach won't work," Reynolds observed, studying the security layout. "Too many redundant systems, too many trained personnel. We need something unexpected." Cooper nodded, his tactical mind already formulating alternatives. "Sanchez, what's your assessment of their electronic surveillance capabilities?" "State-of-the-art," she replied without hesitation. "Full-spectrum monitoring, AI-enhanced threat detection, quantum encryption on their secure communications. Conventional electronic warfare techniques would be detected immediately." "Then we go analog," Cooper decided. "Old-school tradecraft, minimal electronic footprint. Catherine infiltrates as planned, carrying only approved electronics that will pass security screening. Physical intelligence gathering, visual recognition, and memory, rather than digital collection." The approach was reminiscent of Cold War espionage techniques, relying on human intelligence rather than technology exploiting the blind spots in systems designed to detect electronic intrusion. "Extraction plan?" Kat asked, focusing on the critical aspect of any infiltration mission. "Three options," Cooper replied, indicating points on the facility schematic. "Primary extraction through the main entrance following the conclusion of the event. Secondary option through the service access on the northeast corner where catering staff will be moving equipment. Emergency extraction via the roof, where we'll have a helicopter on standby under the guise of news coverage." The planning continued well into the evening, with each team member contributing specialized expertise to create a comprehensive operational framework. As darkness fell over the safe house, they transitioned to equipment preparation, selecting weapons, communication devices, and tactical gear that balanced effectiveness against detectability. Kat was inspecting a set of specialized lockpicks disguised as jewelry when Reynolds approached her privately. "Cooper's not telling us everything," he said quietly, his voice pitched below the level of the other's conversation. "What makes you say that?" Kat asked, careful to keep her own voice neutral. 3 years working together, I know when he's compartmentalizing," Reynolds replied. "After Hindu Kush, we promised no more secrets within the team. But something's changed since we found you." The implicit request for information put Kat in a difficult position. Cooper had instructed her to maintain operational security regarding their suspicions about Sullivan, even from other team members. But Reynolds had been her spotter, the person who'd shared her hide positions through countless operations. The bond between sniper and spotter was unique, built on absolute trust and communication. "We're all adjusting to being a unit again," she offered carefully. 3 years is a long time. Trust takes time to rebuild." Reynolds studied her face, his expression making it clear he recognized the evasion. "Just watch yourself, Catherine. The mission parameters have changed more than once since we started tracking Nemesis. I'm not convinced we're all working toward the same objective anymore." Before Kat could respond, Sanchez called them back to the main planning area. "We've got movement on the perimeter," she announced, indicating the security monitors. "Vehicle approaching from the south access road." Cooper moved immediately to defensive position, retrieving a suppressed M4 carbine from the weapons cache. "Identification: black suburban government plates," Sanchez replied, enhancing the surveillance image. "Matches Sullivan's security detail." "Unexpected?" Cooper noted, his expression hardening. "No scheduled contact until tomorrow." "Could be a friendly check-in," Reynolds suggested, "or counter-surveillance testing our reactions," Cooper countered. "Defensive positions, standard protocol. Cat observation post 2. Reynolds north perimeter. Sanchez maintain electronic monitoring." They moved with practiced efficiency, assuming tactical positions that covered all approaches to the safe house. Kat took position at a reinforced window on the second floor, her rifle trained on the approaching vehicle. Through her scope, she observed two men in the Suburban, both with military bearing, wearing civilian clothes that failed to disguise their professional status. The driver remained with the vehicle while the passenger approached the safe house, his movements indicating awareness of tactical vulnerabilities. "One approaching one in reserve," she reported through the tactical communication system. "Professional movement patterns carrying sidearm under left arm, possible secondary weapon at ankle." "Hold position," Cooper instructed. "Let's see what they want." The man reached the front entrance and knocked 3 times, then twice more. The dead-eye recognition pattern. "Sullivan's man," Cooper acknowledged. "Sanchez, verify identity before admission." Sanchez activated the external camera system comparing the visitor's face against their database. "Confirmed. Major Thomas Grant Sullivan's security chief." "Grant," Reynolds's voice carried unexpected recognition. "I know him. Force Recon, then Delta. Solid operator." Cooper made the decision. "Admit him, but maintain security protocols. No sensitive information, no operational details beyond what's absolutely necessary." Kat maintained her observation position as Grant was admitted to the safe house. Through her scope, she continued monitoring the driver, who remained vigilant, but made no aggressive movements. From her position, she could hear the conversation below as Cooper greeted Grant with professional caution. "Unexpected visit, Major," Cooper said, his tone neutral but alert. "Necessary risk," Grant replied. "Sullivan sent me with critical intelligence. Time-sensitive, couldn't wait for scheduled contact." "What kind of intelligence?" Cooper asked. "Harrington has moved up the timetable," Grant explained. "The Vertex Dynamics Gala has been rescheduled for tomorrow night instead of next week. Security protocols have been enhanced, guest list restricted further. Whatever he's planning, it's happening sooner than we anticipated." The information sent a ripple of tension through the team. Their operational timeline had just been compressed from 6 days to less than 36 hours, inadequate for the kind of preparation a mission of this complexity required. "That's not all," Grant continued. "Sullivan has confirmed that Secretary of Defense Phillips wasn't the only target that day. The Director of National Intelligence was scheduled to be at the same event, but canceled at the last minute due to illness. And the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs changed his arrival time due to weather delays." The implication was clear. Harrington had attempted to eliminate 3 key members of the Nuclear Command Authority simultaneously. Had he succeeded, it would have created unprecedented vulnerability in America's nuclear security structure. "There's one more thing," Grant added, his voice taking on a grave quality that commanded complete attention. "Sullivan has identified a potential mole within your former command structure. Someone who had detailed knowledge of Deadeye operations and has been working with Harrington since before Hindu Kush." "Who?" Cooper demanded. "He wouldn't tell me," Grant admitted. "Said the information was too sensitive to share through any intermediary. He wants to meet all of you at a secure location of his choosing. Tonight." The request triggered immediate suspicion. After years of careful operational security, Sullivan was suddenly demanding a face-to-face meeting with the entire surviving Deadeye team. It could be legitimate urgency driven by new intelligence, or the perfect setup for a trap. "Not happening," Cooper decided instantly. "We don't move as a complete unit. Basic operational security." "He anticipated your response," Grant acknowledged. "Offered an alternative. He'll meet with just one representative, his credentials against yours." From her observation post, Kat could see the tactical calculation in Cooper's posture. The offer represented both opportunity and risk, potential critical intelligence, balanced against possible betrayal. "I'll go," Kat said through the communication system, making the decision that tactically made the most sense. I'm the unknown variable. Harrington doesn't know I've reconnected with the team. If it's a trap, you maintain operational capability. There was a moment of silence as Cooper considered the proposal. Finally, he nodded. Agreed. Kat makes contact. The rest of us maintain position and readiness for immediate response if needed. Grant provided coordinates for the meeting, an abandoned mining operation 30 miles north, isolated enough for security but accessible within their compressed timeline. Sullivan will be there at 2300 hours, Grant concluded, alone as a show of good faith. After Grant departed, the team gathered for immediate tactical revision. The compressed timeline forced significant adjustments to their operational plan, eliminating valuable training and preparation time. I don't like it, Reynolds stated bluntly. Sullivan suddenly has urgent intelligence that requires an immediate meeting at a remote location, classic ambush setup. Agreed, Cooper acknowledged, but we need that intelligence if Harrington has accelerated his timeline. We proceed with maximum caution. Kat meets Sullivan as planned, but with comprehensive overwatch and immediate extraction capability. The revised plan took shape quickly. Cooper would establish sniper overwatch at the meeting location, while Reynolds maintained a tactical position with extraction vehicles. Sanchez would coordinate from the safehouse, monitoring communications and providing real-time intelligence support. As they prepared equipment for the night operation, Kat found herself alone with Cooper briefly in the weapons room. If Sullivan is compromised, she said quietly, if this is a trap, don't hesitate. Take the shot, regardless of my position. Cooper checked the optics on his sniper rifle, a custom .300 Winchester Magnum capable of precision elimination beyond 1,500 meters. That won't be necessary, he replied with quiet confidence, because if it's a trap, you'll identify it before execution. And if Sullivan has betrayed us, you'll ensure he never leaves that meeting alive. The cold precision of his statement was a reminder of what had made Deadeye Division legendary, the absolute commitment to mission success and team survival regardless of personal cost. It was what had bound them together through impossible operations and what might keep them alive through whatever awaited at the abandoned mine. As darkness settled over the Alaskan wilderness, Kat prepared for the meeting with methodical precision. Her equipment was minimal, but lethal: a suppressed sidearm, 2 concealed blades, and communication equipment secured against electronic warfare. Her clothing was selected for both tactical functionality and environmental protection against the bitter cold. Ready? Cooper asked as she completed her preparations. Kat nodded, the familiar pre-mission focus settling over her like a second skin. Ghost is operational. Cooper held her gaze for a moment longer than necessary, an uncharacteristic display of concern from a commander known for emotional discipline. Watch your 6 out there. Something about this feels wrong. When doesn't it? Kat replied with grim humor. That's why they created Deadeye in the first place. For when everything feels wrong. The team moved out into the Alaskan night, each assuming their assigned role in an operation that balanced on the knife edge between essential intelligence gathering and potential disaster. As their vehicles separated to approach the meeting site from different vectors, Kat found herself oddly calm. After 3 years of hiding in plain sight, pretending to be someone she wasn't, Ghost was fully operational again. Whatever awaited her at the abandoned mine, vital intelligence or deadly trap, she would face it, as she had faced every mission, with precision, discipline, and the absolute certainty that failure was not an option. For Deadeye Division, it never had been. The abandoned mining operation loomed against the night sky, its skeletal structures casting long shadows across the snow-covered terrain. Kat approached on foot, having left the vehicle a mile back to avoid detection. The bitter Alaskan wind cut through her tactical clothing, but she barely registered the discomfort. Physical sensations faded to background noise when operational focus took over. Through her earpiece, Cooper's voice came in clear and measured. Overwatch established. I have clear lines on the main building and all approach vectors. No sign of Sullivan yet. Copy? Kat replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Proceeding to rendezvous point. She moved with practiced silence, her senses operating at peak alertness. A fox darted between abandoned equipment 70 yards to her left. An owl's wings displaced air overhead. The subtle creak of metal contracting in the cold night. And something else, the almost imperceptible sound of controlled breathing from the shadows near the main entrance. Contact, she subvocalized. Main entrance, eastern shadow. Confirmed, came Cooper's immediate response. Single-figure male, maintaining concealment. Matches Sullivan's profile. Colonel Sullivan, she called out when she reached the clearing before the main building. You wanted to meet. A figure emerged from the shadows, Robert Sullivan, his military bearing evident despite civilian winter clothing. He moved with the careful precision of someone who understood tactical vulnerabilities, staying clear of potential sniper positions. Lieutenant Hayes, he acknowledged, using her original designation rather than her cover identity. Or do you prefer Ghost, now that you've reconnected with your team? Let's skip the pleasantries, Kat replied coldly. Your man Grant said you have critical intelligence about Harrington and Project Nemesis. Sullivan reached slowly into his jacket and withdrew a small digital device. Everything I've gathered is on this. Names, dates, communication records, financial transactions, the complete conspiracy linking Harrington to the betrayal of your unit and the development of Project Nemesis. And the identity of the mole, Kat pressed. Sullivan's expression grew grave. That's the most disturbing part. The evidence points to William Cooper. The accusation hung in the frigid air between them. Through her earpiece, Kat heard Cooper's sharp intake of breath, followed by absolute silence. That's a serious allegation, Kat said carefully. What evidence supports it? Financial records showing deposits to offshore accounts following each Deadeye operation. Communication intercepts indicating information exchange with Harrington before the Hindu Kush mission. And most damning, Cooper's daughter Sarah was never killed in that car accident 3 years ago, as officially reported. She's alive, being held by Harrington as leverage. The revelation struck Kat like a physical blow. Cooper had never mentioned a daughter during their years operating together. Personal details were compartmentalized for security reasons, but the implication was clear. If Harrington was holding Cooper's daughter hostage, it created a devastating vulnerability that could explain uncharacteristic betrayal. Through her earpiece, Kat expected to hear Cooper's denial or explanation. Instead, there was only silence, the communication channel dead. Cooper, she subvocalized, maintaining her external composure while attempting to re-establish contact. Reynolds, Sanchez report status. No response. Either the communication system had failed or something had happened to her team. Sullivan seemed to read her concern. Communications jammed. That's not my doing, but it confirms what I suspected. This meeting has been compromised. He offered the digital device. Everything you need is here, including where Harrington is holding Cooper's daughter. A sudden explosion shattered the night, not close, but within a few miles. The direction matched the location of the Deadeye safe house. That's your team's location, Sullivan said grimly. Harrington's made his move. How did Harrington find the safe house? She demanded. That location was secure. The same way he's found every Deadeye safe house for the past 3 years, Sullivan replied. Through Cooper. I need verification, she stated flatly. Hard evidence, not accusations. Sullivan nodded toward the device in her hand. It's all there, including recorded conversations between Cooper and Harrington regarding his daughter's captivity. But we don't have time for you to review it now. Marshall's life is in immediate danger. What's your plan? She asked, making the decision to proceed with Sullivan while maintaining operational caution. My plane is waiting at a private airstrip 20 miles from here. We can be in Seattle by dawn, establish defensive positions before Marshall's scheduled appearance. Kat nodded once the decision made. Lead the way. But understand this, if you're playing me, if this is some kind of setup, I won't hesitate to eliminate the threat. Even if that threat is you. Sullivan's weathered face showed a flash of approval. I'd expect nothing less from Ghost. The flight to Seattle passed in tense silence, Kat using the time to review the evidence on Sullivan's device. The material was comprehensive and damning financial records showing payments to accounts linked to Cooper communication transcripts, revealing operational details shared with Harrington, and surveillance photos of a young woman being held in what appeared to be a secured facility with Vertex Dynamics security protocols. If the evidence was authentic, Cooper had been compromised since before the Hindu Kush mission. It explained the precision of the ambush, how enemy forces had known exactly where to find them, how to neutralize their defensive positions. But something didn't add up. If Cooper was working for Harrington, why had he spent 3 years hunting the man? Why establish an operational team specifically targeted at exposing Project Nemesis? The Olympic Hotel came into view, an elegant historic building in downtown Seattle. Sullivan parked 2 blocks away, in a position that provided clear sight lines to the hotel's main entrance, while maintaining tactical distance. Grant will meet us here, Sullivan said, checking his watch. In the meantime, we should establish defensive positions and identify potential sniper locations. Kat was already scanning surrounding buildings for the positions she would choose if tasked with eliminating a target at the hotel. 3 buildings immediately stood out: a modern office tower with clear lines to the hotel entrance, an older residential building with multiple potential hide positions, and a construction site that provided both elevation and concealment. I count 3 primary positions, 9 secondary, she reported, plus multiple ground-level approach vectors for close-range contingencies. A figure approached their vehicle from the direction of the hotel, Thomas Grant, wearing the uniform of a private security contractor. We have a problem, Grant said as he joined them. Marshall's schedule changed. He's speaking in 30 minutes, not 2 hours as originally planned. Security protocols have been modified, different approach route, different entry point. Harrington's people made the changes, Sullivan asked. Almost certainly. The new route increases vulnerability, creates a clear kill zone with limited defensive options. Kat processed this new information. They're creating an optimal engagement window. Reduced security, predictable movement, maximum vulnerability. Sullivan checked his weapon, a suppressed Sig Sauer P226. We need to move now. Kat, you take overwatch position at the Westlake Tower. Grant and I will integrate with Marshall's security detail. Negative, Kat countered immediately. Better tactical distribution would be for me to integrate with the security detail while you establish overwatch. My close protection skills are more current, and Grant's existing credentials give him access. Marshall's team will recognize. Sullivan considered the alternative briefly before nodding. Agreed. They separated immediately, each moving toward their assigned positions with professional efficiency. Kat followed Grant toward the hotel, adjusting her body language and demeanor to project the confidence of authorized security personnel. Cooper's daughter, she said quietly as they walked. Sullivan showed me evidence she's being held by Harrington. Is it verified? Confirmed, Grant replied. Sarah Cooper, age 26. officially killed in a car accident 3 years ago, actually held at a Vertex facility outside Tacoma. I've seen her myself during a security rotation. And Cooper knows. Harrington made sure of it. Sends proof of life before every operation with threats of what happens if Cooper doesn't comply. They reached the hotel's service entrance, where Grant's credentials granted them access. Inside, they moved through service corridors toward the Wellington suite, where Deputy Secretary Marshall was preparing for his appearance. Deputy Secretary Marshall is in the Wellington suite, Grant explained. Modified plan has him moving to the conference center through the North Corridor, then directly to the stage. Minimal public exposure, but multiple vulnerabilities along the route. The Secret Service detail maintained a professional perimeter around Marshall, a distinguished man in his 60s, with the bearing of someone accustomed to positions of authority. Grant made brief introductions explaining Kat's presence as additional security. Schedule change came from the top, the lead agent explained. Direct order from General Harrington's office, citing security concerns about the original route. Kat positioned herself near Marshall, establishing a protective position that would allow immediate response to threats from multiple vectors. Through her earpiece, Sullivan's voice came through with tactical precision. Overwatch established. I have sight lines to the entire approach route. No hostile indicators yet, but I'm tracking multiple security personnel with non-standard equipment. Possible Nemesis operators. The Secret Service began final preparations for movement. A subtle movement from Grant caught her attention, his hand shifting to an inside pocket in a way that tactical operators recognized as weapon draw preparation. Compromised, Grant said quietly, the single word carrying unmistakable warning. Before Kat could respond, the suite's main door opened and a figure entered with confident authority, General Victor Harrington himself, accompanied by 2 security personnel who moved with the precise economy of special operations training. Deputy Secretary, Harrington greeted Marshall with practiced warmth. I thought I'd personally escort you to the conference. Given recent security concerns, we can't be too careful. Harrington's eyes scanned the room, passing over Kat without apparent recognition before settling on Grant. Something changed in his expression, a subtle hardening that tactical operators would recognize as combat readiness. Major Grant, Harrington acknowledged, I wasn't aware you were assigned to the Deputy Secretary's detail. Last-minute addition, sir, Grant replied smoothly. Given the schedule change. The security detail formed up around Marshall, with Harrington positioning himself directly beside the Deputy Secretary. Through her earpiece, Sullivan's voice carried urgent warning. Multiple hostiles converging on your position. I count at least 6 operators with tactical positioning. They're setting up a kill zone in the North Corridor. Kat moved smoothly to Marshall's side. Sir, security compromise. We need to move you to an alternate exit immediately. Before she could implement the extraction, Harrington's hand closed around Marshall's arm. I'm afraid there's been a change of plans, Robert, he said, his voice carrying none of the earlier warmth. National security concerns require your immediate cooperation. The tactical situation crystallized with perfect clarity. Harrington wasn't simply planning Marshall's assassination, he was personally ensuring its execution. The surrounding security personnel were Nemesis operators positioned to eliminate Marshall and anyone who attempted to intervene. Kat made her decision in a fraction of a second. She moved with explosive speed, driving her elbow into the nearest Nemesis operator while simultaneously drawing Marshall away from Harrington's grip. Grant extraction, Route B. Grant responded instantly, engaging a second operator while creating a path toward the service corridor. The Secret Service agents, momentarily confused by the sudden violence, quickly assessed the situation and moved to protect Marshall. Harrington's voice cut through the chaos with command authority. Security breach. Protect the Deputy Secretary. Kat countered immediately, her voice carrying the unmistakable authority of combat command. Nemesis operators in the security detail, Harrington is compromised. Get Marshall to extraction point, Charlie. Through her earpiece, Sullivan's voice confirmed the deteriorating situation. Hostiles converging from all approaches. You're surrounded. North corridor is completely blocked. They reached the service corridor, Grant securing the door behind them, as Kat led Marshall toward the emergency stairs. Sullivan, we need extraction at Point Charlie. Service entrance east side. Negative, came Sullivan's tense response. East side is compromised. Multiple hostiles. I'm engaging from overwatch position but can't clear the extraction route. A new voice cut through her tactical communication, familiar, authoritative, impossible. Ghost, this is Iron. Hold position in service corridor. Cavalry arriving in 30 seconds. Cooper. Somehow, despite the compromised safe house, despite Sullivan's evidence of betrayal, despite everything, Cooper was alive and operational. Before Kat could process this development, the service corridor door at the far end burst open. She pushed Marshall behind cover, weapon drawn, and ready to engage what she expected to be Nemesis operators. Instead, she saw Cooper himself leading Reynolds and a tactical team in full combat gear. They moved with the synchronized precision that had made Deadeye Division legendary, securing the corridor with practiced efficiency. Extraction route secured, Cooper announced, his voice carrying the calm authority that had guided them through countless operations. Move now. Sullivan's compromised, Cooper stated flatly as they reached him. Has been from the beginning. He's Harrington's primary asset, not me. The accusation mirrored Sullivan's claims about Cooper, each man identifying the other as the traitor. Kat maintained operational focus, prioritizing Marshall's extraction above resolving the conflicting claims. Verification later, she replied tersely. Extraction now. A tactical vehicle waited at the loading dock, engine running, and positioned for immediate departure. Reynolds stood by the open door, weapon ready, and eyes constantly scanning for threats. Clear so far, he reported as they approached. But Nemesis operators are regrouping. We have maybe 2 minutes before they establish containment perimeter. They loaded Marshall into the vehicle, Cooper taking the driver's position with Reynolds riding shotgun, and the remainder of the tactical team establishing defensive positions for the departure. What about Sullivan? Kat asked as they prepared to move. Contained, Cooper replied cryptically. He won't be a problem. The vehicle moved out, Cooper navigating with the precise control of someone who had planned and memorized multiple extraction routes. Someone needs to explain what the hell is happening, Marshall said, his voice remarkably steady, given the circumstances. Who are you people, and why is General Harrington trying to have me killed? The short version, Cooper replied, eyes never leaving the road, is that Harrington has been running an unauthorized assassination program called Project Nemesis. Your audit would have exposed funding irregularities connected to the program, making you a primary target. And Sullivan, Kat pressed, unwilling to proceed further without clarification of the conflicting allegations. Cooper's expression hardened. Sullivan recruited and trained Harrington. When Deadeye Division proved too independent for their purposes, they created Project Nemesis as a replacement operators with comparable skills but conditioned for absolute loyalty. Sullivan has been Harrington's hidden partner from the beginning. That contradicts the evidence Sullivan provided, Kat countered. He claims you're the compromised asset that Harrington is holding your daughter as leverage. Sarah is being held, Cooper confirmed, but not as leverage against me, as bait in a trap designed to compromise me in the eyes of the team. Sullivan has been playing a long game, positioning himself as the trustworthy alternative, while painting me as the traitor. The tactical vehicle navigated through Seattle's early morning traffic. Cooper drove with practiced precision, following a route that balanced efficiency against predictability. "We have a secure location established," he continued, "and a plan to extract Sarah concurrent with our neutralization of Harrington's operation." Marshall listened to the exchange with focused attention. "If what you're saying is true, we're facing a catastrophic security breach at the highest levels of military command. Harrington has access to nuclear launch protocols, strategic defense systems, classified operations worldwide." "It's worse than that," Cooper replied grimly. "Operation Checkmate isn't just about eliminating threats to Nemesis. It's about systematic replacement of the Nuclear Command Authority, with operators loyal to Harrington and Sullivan. The assassination attempts against you, Secretary Phillips, and others, they're just the first phase." "What's the second phase?" Marshall asked, though his expression suggested he'd already guessed the answer. Cooper stated flatly. "Harrington positions his people in key command roles. Sullivan provides political cover through his connections in intelligence communities, and together they establish effective control over America's nuclear arsenal." The secure location was an operational command center where Sanchez was already coordinating multiple information streams on digital displays. She acknowledged their arrival with a brief nod before returning to her work. "Marshall is secure," Cooper announced. "Status on secondary objectives." "Sarah's location confirmed," Sanchez replied without looking up from her station. "Vertex facility outside Tacoma, sub-level 3 East Quadrant. Security protocols identified and mapped. Extraction team in position awaiting authorization." "And Harrington," Cooper pressed. "Currently at Olympic Hotel coordinating response to Marshall's extraction. Security perimeter established, multiple Nemesis operators deployed. He's locked down tight, no viable approach vector without significant collateral risk." Cooper turned to Marshall, his expression grave. "Sir, we need your authorization to proceed with full operational parameters. What we're proposing goes beyond standard military protocol. It involves direct action against a serving general officer without formal charges or court-martial." Marshall considered the request with careful deliberation. "If what you've told me is accurate, Harrington represents an imminent threat to national security at the most fundamental level. Under such circumstances, Title 50 authorities would apply." He straightened his decision made. "As Acting Secretary of Defense in Secretary Phillips's absence, I authorize immediate action to neutralize the threat posed by General Harrington and Project Nemesis by any means necessary. I take full responsibility for this authorization." Cooper nodded once acceptance of both the authorization and the burden it represented. "Sanchez, initiate Operation Phoenix. Full spectrum, all assets deployed." "What's the plan?" Kat asked, studying the tactical displays with professional assessment. "Three-phase operation," Cooper explained. "First, extract Sarah from the Vertex facility. Second, secure evidence of Project Nemesis and Operation Checkmate from Harrington's secure servers. Third, neutralize Harrington himself before he can implement contingency protocols or escape." "Where do you need me?" Kat asked, automatically falling into operational mode. "With me. We take Harrington. You're the only team member he hasn't identified as a survivor, which gives us a tactical advantage in the approach." The assignment made strategic sense, but Kat remained cautious. "And Sullivan? Reynolds has him secured at our secondary location," Cooper replied. "Once the operation is complete, we'll deal with him appropriately." The Olympic Hotel's presidential suite had been transformed into Harrington's command center. Kat and Cooper approached through the service shaft, a confined space requiring perfect body control and spatial awareness skills honed through years of specialized training. They positioned themselves above the suite entrance, deploying fiber optic cameras through nearly invisible gaps in the ceiling structure. Harrington stood at a central planning table surrounded by officers with the characteristic posture of special operations personnel. "Target confirmed," Cooper signaled. 8 additional personnel in primary room, unknown number in adjacent areas. Cooper indicated the tactical approach: wait for personnel distribution to create a vulnerability, then execute a precision entry targeting Harrington directly. Below them, the suite's security posture shifted as Harrington directed personnel to different positions. "Window opening," Cooper signaled. "On my mark." Mark. They breached simultaneously from different angles. Cooper removing a ceiling panel and dropping directly behind the suite entrance, Kat executing a controlled entry near the communication station. The suddenness of their appearance created momentary disorientation among the security personnel, providing critical seconds for targeting priority threats. Kat neutralized the operators at the communication station with precision strikes, non-lethal, but immediately incapacitating. Cooper moved directly toward Harrington, his approach covered by Kat's suppressing fire against security personnel responding to the breach. Harrington reacted with the speed of a combat veteran drawing a concealed weapon and moving toward defensive cover. But Cooper anticipated the movement, intercepting him before he could establish a protected firing position. Cooper forced Harrington into a submission hold, disarming him with practiced efficiency. "Victor Harrington, you are being detained under Title 50 authorities for conspiracy against the United States, treason, and multiple violations of military law." Harrington's expression showed not defeat, but calculation. "You've made a critical mistake, Bill. You've always been a superb tactician, but you've never understood the strategic game." "The game is over, Victor," Cooper replied, securing Harrington with tactical restraints. "Sarah is free. Your evidence is being secured as we speak. Nemesis is finished." For the first time, genuine alarm showed in Harrington's expression. "You got to Sarah. That's impossible. Secured by Nemesis operators, monitored by cutting-edge surveillance, protected by protocols you personally established," Cooper finished for him. "All true and all insufficient against a properly motivated Deadeye team." "Target secured," Cooper reported through their tactical communication system. "Extraction Protocol Alpha." Harrington studied Cooper with calculating eyes. "You're still missing the bigger picture, Bill. This was never about Nemesis or even nuclear command. Those were means, not ends." "Enlighten me," Cooper replied, maintaining professional detachment. "America needs strength at its core," Harrington stated with conviction. "The current command structure is compromised by political considerations, diplomatic niceties, bureaucratic constraints. Real security requires decisive action without the burden of congressional oversight or public accountability." "You're describing a military dictatorship," Kat observed coldly. Harrington's attention shifted to her recognition dawning in his expression. "Lieutenant Hayes, or is it Ghost Impressive Resurrection? Sullivan was convinced you'd been neutralized permanently." "Sullivan," Cooper pressed. "What's his role in all this?" Harrington smiled thinly. "Robert's the architect. I'm merely the builder. He created the conceptual framework 15 years ago, a shadow command structure capable of overriding civilian leadership in critical scenarios. Deadeye Division was the prototype, but you operators proved too independent, too attached to outdated concepts of constitutional authority." "Extraction team in position," came Sanchez's update through their tactical communication. As they prepared for extraction, a new voice came through their communication system, Sullivan's voice impossibly. "Contingency protocols disabled. Authentication code Sierra Tango 071. Cooper's expression hardened. Sanchez report. Sullivan's containment status. Unknown, came Sanchez's tense reply. Reynolds reported secure containment 30 minutes ago, but communication has been lost just for the past 8 minutes. The suite door burst open. Cat turned weapon raised and ready to engage. Instead, Sullivan himself entered, accompanied by Reynolds and additional tactical personnel. Reynolds showed signs of recent combat, a laceration above his eye, tactical gear damaged on his left side. "Stand down, Cooper," Sullivan commanded with authority. "It's over." Cooper maintained his position weapon trained on Sullivan. Reynolds report status. Sullivan broke containment, neutralized 2 security personnel before I could respond. He claims contingency evidence regarding the actual conspiracy. "There's been a misunderstanding, Bill," Sullivan said reasonably. "Harrington has been feeding you false intelligence, manipulating your concern for Sarah to position me as the conspirator." "Convenient narrative," Cooper replied coldly. "Especially now that we have Harrington in custody and Sarah extracted from his facility." Sullivan's expression showed genuine surprise. "Sarah's secure? You're certain?" "Confirmed extraction 20 minutes ago," Cooper stated. "Which you would know if you were monitoring operational communications as claimed." Sullivan recognized the trap too late. His expression hardened into combat readiness as he assessed the tactical situation. "It seems we've reached an impasse," he observed calmly. "Your word against mine. Harrington's testimony against my evidence." "They'll believe the evidence," came Sanchez's voice through the tactical channel. "Complete data package secured and transmitted to multiple secure locations. Financial records, communication transcripts, operational orders, everything documenting your partnership with Harrington and the complete Nemesis conspiracy." Sullivan's composed expression faltered slightly. "You're making a serious mistake. There are aspects of national security at stake that go beyond conventional understanding." The tactical standoff broke when Reynolds made his decision shifting position to stand alongside Cooper rather than Sullivan. The movement carried unmistakable significance. Deadeye Division standing united against the man who had created and ultimately betrayed them. Sullivan assessed the changed tactical equation with professional detachment. "I see. Well, contingency planning was always my specialty." His hand moved with practiced efficiency toward what appeared to be a standard communication device on his belt. Cat recognized the movement pattern from specialized training scenarios, not communication but activation of some form of dead man's switch. She reacted with instantaneous precision, her suppressed sidearm discharging a single round that struck Sullivan's hand with millimeter accuracy, disabling the trigger mechanism without causing immediately life-threatening damage. Sullivan's expression registered shock rather than pain. "Impressive shot, Ghost. You always were my finest student." The extraction team arrived then, securing Sullivan with specialized restraints designed to prevent any possibility of triggering hidden devices or communication systems. As they prepared both prisoners for transport, Cooper approached Cat. "It's done," he said simply. "Nemesis contained evidence secured, Deadeye vindicated." 6 months later, Cat stood alone before a simple granite marker at Arlington National Cemetery. The marker bore no special designations or elaborate inscriptions, just a name, rank, and dates of service. Colonel Robert Sullivan, United States Army, 1958-2025. The official narrative established Sullivan as a decorated officer who died preventing a conspiracy against the United States government. The classified truth, his central role in that same conspiracy, remained known only to those with appropriate clearance and direct operational involvement. Kat placed a small object on the marker, a polished metal disc bearing the distinctive insignia of Deadeye Division. "Mission complete, Colonel," she said quietly. "He created his own destruction," came Cooper's voice from behind her. "Trained us too well, made us too effective, instilled principles he himself abandoned." Kat turned to find Cooper standing a respectful distance away. The past 6 months had softened some of the hardness in his expression, reunion with his daughter, providing healing that years of operational focus had deferred. "Sarah wanted me to thank you," he said as they walked together away from Sullivan's grave. "She understands what you did, what it meant for her freedom." "Marshall's offer still stands?" Kat asked. "Official recognition, proper authorization, legitimate command structure," Cooper confirmed. "Deadeye Division re-established as a specialized counterterrorism unit within Joint Special Operations Command. Reynolds and Sanchez have already accepted positions." "And you?" Kat asked. "Have you decided?" "Sarah has another year of psychological recovery ahead. After that, I'm considering a training position, passing on what we've learned without direct operational involvement." "And you, Ghost?" Cooper asked as they reached the cemetery gates. "What's next for Catherine Hayes?" Kat considered the question that had occupied her thoughts since the conspiracy's exposure. 3 years as Catherine Reynolds had taught her the possibility of life beyond operations, but it had also shown her the hollow center of identity built on necessary deception. "I'm in," she decided, the simple statement carrying the weight of commitment that had always defined her operational participation. Someone needs to ensure the next Sullivan or Harrington doesn't get as far as they did. Someone needs to watch the watchman. Cooper nodded approval. "Marshall will be pleased. He specifically requested you for the Counterintelligence Division, identifying potential threats within command structures before they develop into active conspiracies." As they parted ways outside Arlington's gates, Cooper extended his hand in formal acknowledgement. "Welcome back, Ghost. Deadeye Division will be operational again in 30 days. Briefing at Fort Bragg, 0800 hours." Kat accepted the handshake, the gesture carrying the weight of renewed commitment and professional trust rebuilt after years of necessary suspicion. "I'll be there, Iron." She watched Cooper walk away, his posture carrying both the weight of past command and the lightness of renewed purpose. Sullivan's grave remained behind them, a silent reminder of how easily purpose could be corrupted, how principles could be abandoned in pursuit of control disguised as necessary security. Ghost would ensure that line was never crossed again. That was her new mission, and like every operation she had ever undertaken, failure was not an option.